So I was in the shower the other day, cleaning the areas that needed to be cleaned, while also thinking about what's going to happen in England this season. And yes, it's possible to do both, so get off my back. And I said to myself, F it, let's do another preview. So here we go, it's time to break down one of the most competitive leagues in the world, if not the most competitive league in the world, the Premier League. And I'm gonna start with Arsenal, because Arsene Wenger is out. The old man finally took the hint about 5 years and 30 planes over the stadium later than he should have, and now a new era is upon the club. But is the new manager Unai Emery the right guy for the job? He doesn't have the charisma of Jurgen Klopp, or the confidence or vision or tactical acumen of Pep Guardiola, or the winning my way stubbornness of Jose Mourinho, which has earned the special one so many trophies. And maybe more trophies than he deserves given how conservative he is. Nor does he have the deep pockets that those clubs have, which arguably makes those managers' jobs just a little bit easier. But he does best Spurs' Mauricio Pochettino and Chelsea's Maurizio Sarri in the winning department, having lifted quite a few trophies with PSG and with Sevilla, especially in the Europa League, which is fitting since that's what Arsenal will be competing in this season. And I'm happy to hear that he's going with a 4-2-3-1, if only because three in the back never did much for me. And he's going to get Alexander Lacazette and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang on the field at the same time, which I believe is a very, very good move, and a somewhat obvious one, right? Those guys should definitely be on the field at the same time. And I like the signings of Bernd Leno to potentially replace Petr Cech as the number one, and Socrates and Steven Lichtsteiner to shore up the defense a bit. And I'm really loving Lucas Torreira to protect the back four. I think he's a gem of a player even at his tender age, which should help them win more than one game on the road this upcoming season. But is that enough for them to crack the top four? Maybe, because maybe having a new boss with a new voice will reinvigorate the core players on the team who could use some reinvigoration. So I want to say fourth, mainly for the easy joke, but I don't think they're going to get top four this season. I'm going to say fifth. And up next, it's Brighton, who surprised maybe even themselves by finishing somewhat comfortably in 15th place last season, which has to make their fans, players, and Chris Hughton, who still feels criminally underrated as a manager, extremely proud of what they accomplished. But let's be honest, last season there were no expectations. 0, nil, nada, which I assure you is much easier circumstances to play under than a season with expectations, which is what they're going to have this season. Also, I don't think there's a way that 34-year-old striker Glenn Murray is going to bang in another 12 league goals this time around. It's just not going to happen. And there are other options up top like Jurgen Locadia. He only scored 1 league goal last season, and it was against Swansea, so I don't even know if that should count. Well, it's just not a good sign heading into this season for the team. So in summation, I think Brighton are going to have trouble scoring goals in general, and they're not going to sneak up on anybody anymore because the other clubs now know what they're about and what to expect. So this season is going to be a hard one in many ways, but because I admire their manager so greatly, I think they'll find a way to survive. 17th. And now let's talk about West Ham, who I believe had a tremendous summer. First, they brought in a manager that has won the Premier League before in Manuel Pellegrini, which should demand instant respect from the players, which is an important first step towards building a cohesive unit because they have to believe in the man in charge. Second, the club spent some money, over 100 million so far, including on Felipe Anderson from Lazio, who I think will do very well in England. And they worked some magic getting some quality free transfers like Jack Wilshere, and their big signings from last season, Marco Arnautovic and Chicharito, have a vital year of experience with the club under their belts. It was a very difficult year to add to that, which should see them take on more of a leadership role. So for me, things are on the up and up for the Hammers, but I'm not sure it'll be enough to crack the top 6 unless one of the bigger clubs has a crap season, but I don't see that happening with any of the top 6, so I'm gonna say 7th. Though I think they could get to the FA Cup final or something like that. I just really enjoy Manuel Pellegrini and what he's about, and I think West Ham fans would be very happy with that, right? Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to West Ham's biggest rivals, Fulham, who played well but ultimately had to scrape their way through a tough campaign last season in the Championship and its subsequent playoff. But let's be honest, every team is scraping their way through tough campaigns in the Championship, unless you were Wolves last season, who got 99 points and cruised the whole time in what has to be one of the hardest leagues in the world. But that's a topic for another time because we are talking about the Cottagers and their billion-dollar owner and their manager who was managing in Thailand and Israel before getting the Fulham job, and I wonder who he blackmailed to make that happen. And two of their more talented players in Ryan Sessegnon and the new signing from Nice, Jean-Michel Seri, who will definitely be sold to much bigger clubs in the future because they're that good. So I don't really know what to make of these guys. I mean, Alexander Mitrovic made his move permanent. Andre Schürrle comes in from Dortmund, which is a bit of a surprise. And American center back Tim Ream, who I hope will bring his A game all season, is slated to start. And they also strengthened in some other areas. Plus, their manager goes for it with a very thoughtful, high-pressing system, which leads to turnovers in good areas, which leads to goals. And as we know, goals leads to wins, and wins keeps them up. Also, their owner, Shad Khan, seems committed to making sure that they do stay up, and that's always a good sign. So I'm gonna say 12th. And next up, it's Burnley. And frankly, what I want all of us to think about with regard to this overachieving club is this. Was their manager Sean Dyche a better manager last season for getting his group of guys, none of whom would start for the champions Manchester City, to finish in 7th in the Premier League and secure the club's first ever spot in a European competition than Pep Guardiola, who spent a gajillion dollars over the last 2 seasons to finally win his first league trophy in England? Though don't get me wrong, I love me some Pep, but Dyche's achievement could be even more impressive. Anyway, now that Burnley is playing in Europe, I think that's going to kill their league standing, as it does with most mid-table teams that make it into these continental midweek competitions, because it takes too much energy and depth to try and compete in everything. So I'm going to say 10th. And now it's time to talk a little Chelsea, because 5 seasons ago they got 3rd, then they got 1st, and then they got 10th, and then they got 1st before getting 5th last season. So if we base it on the pattern of their recent history, they should be getting 1st again. But after sacking Antonio Conte a full 2 months after the Premier League ended, which is crazy since it gave new hire Maurizio Sarri little to no time to make any big changes to the team before the season starts, that is, outside of taking stud 26-year-old defensive midfielder Jorginho with him from Napoli, which I believe gives Chelsea the best defensive midfield tandem in the whole league, since it'll be Jorginho and N'Golo Kante holding it down. I think it could take a while for this team to fully execute the new boss's style, also known as Sarri ball, which for the uninitiated is a 4-3-3 formation with the backline playing very high, lots of high pressure all over the field, a huge emphasis on keeping possession, and lots of movement by the front three. And I know that Pep Guardiola is a big fan of Sarri, and I can understand why, because they play very similarly. Which makes me, though, concerned for Chelsea, because potential starting strikers Alvaro Morata and Olivier Giroud aren't very mobile, and I don't get the sense that they're ready to start with Michy Batshuayi as their #1 target just yet, maybe in another year or 2. So in summation, even though I believe the players will enjoy Sarri over Conte, I don't think they have the personnel yet to play how Sarri wants to play. So I think it's going to take him at least until the January transfer window to get everyone on the same page, which at that point, I think they'll be a little bit off the pace, but then he's going to make some moves in this transfer window and they're going to finish strong and they'll get 4th. And up next is Huddersfield Town, who did what no one thought was possible last season, myself included, and that's stay up the season after they got promoted from the Championship, which goes to show you what a good manager like David Wagner is, and a good group of hungry to prove themselves players can accomplish when they're all working together. However, they could run into what we call over here in the States as the sophomore slump, or as I've seen it called across the pond, as the second season syndrome, because it's not always easy to replicate the same magic that you had before, no matter how hard you try, and even if you have the same players. Plus, all the teams know you better now, so you're not going to sneak up on anyone anymore. So I'm going to say that this season is going to be an even bigger challenge for them than it was the season before, and I think they'll be up for it, but it's not going to be enough, and they're going to be heading back to the Championship, and I'm sorry. I want to say otherwise, but that's just how I see it playing out. 18th. Now let's head to Liverpool to talk about the team in blue from that area, Everton, who thought last season was going to be the season they got themselves back in the top 6 after spending a ton of money and bringing in the much heralded Dutch manager Ronald Koeman, but it was a disaster. Their big signings didn't perform. They went through 3 managers, including Big Sam Allardyce, which is never a good sign if he needs to come in and save the day, which he always does, so fair play to him for that. He got them to finish in 8th last season, but still, it was 21 points behind 5th place Chelsea and 4 points off of 6th place Arsenal. So what did they do this offseason? They got themselves another new and much heralded manager in Marco Silva. They spent more money in the transfer window, getting left back Luca Digne from Barcelona and attacking midfielder Richarlison from Watford, which, I'll be honest, I really like both of these signings, but is it enough? The Toffees gave up 58 goals last season, which is the worst amount of goals they've given up since 2001, and they only scored 44, which is a -14 goal differential. So even though I like Marco Silva as a manager and the healthy attacking trio of Gylfi Sigurdsson, Richarlison, and Cenk Tosun, and World Cup hero Jordan Pickford in goal, I just feel like Chelsea, it's going to take a season for it all to really fall into place. So I think they're going to finish in the same spot, 8th. And now we head back to London and Crystal Palace, who had current manager Roy Hodgson been in charge since the beginning of last season. They would have finished in the top 10, but instead they finished right outside of it in 11th, which all things considered was pretty impressive. And now with the addition of a good goalkeeper from Getafe, Vicente Guaita, who had the 3rd best save percentage in La Liga last season, which is saying something, and by somehow keeping Wilfried Zaha from jumping to a bigger club, and with the emergence of 20-year-old right back Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who I think is going to be a star, Palace supporters have some things to be excited about. However, success on the field, for better or for worse, is always dictated by goals. So if Christian Benteke can score more than 3 league goals this season, which is an awful output for the big man last year, then Palace will do well. But if he keeps underperforming, and if Zaha moves, which I think he will if the season looks like a wash by January, things might not be as exciting for their supporters by the end of it. So I'm going to say 13th. But now let's head up north again from London to Manchester and talk some shop about Manchester United, who I picked to win it all last season because Jose Mourinho always wins the league in his 2nd season in charge of a club. That's what he does until he doesn't. Also, even though he finished in 2nd, they never felt like a 2nd place team because they never really challenged their neighbors Manchester City for 1st. They just kind of had that best of the rest feeling to them, and even then, they didn't seem like the best of the rest. And I believe that's 100% due to Mourinho and, among other things, his stubbornness, his conservative tactics, and his throwing of players under the bus publicly. I just don't understand why he does that. There's nothing to be gained from that. So there's just nothing about this club, minus maybe Jesse Lingard and Paul Pogba's social media antics, that feels fun. But despite all of that negativity, they should be better this season. If only because Pogba's a World Cup winner, so the confidence that comes from that should continue to make him an even bigger presence and leader in this side, which I believe is a good thing. And then I believe Romelu Lukaku will build off of his stellar World Cup performance as well, and Alexis Sanchez should be more of a force this season, as I'm sure him and Mourinho had a discussion about how he should be best utilized moving forward. And they still have David De Gea in goal, who gives them a chance to get a result in every single game. So the only crap part for United is that other clubs got better too. So if the players can withstand the Mourinho effect for a full season, then I think they're going to finish in 3rd. If they can't and player unrest begins, then I'll say they finish in 6th. But let's stay positive and put them in 3rd. All right, you know what? Calm down, United fans. Leave your hate for me in the comments section because I need to focus on who is up next, and it's Cardiff City, who had 33-1 odds to make it into the championship playoff last season, let alone getting promoted. So their ascension to the top flight appears to be nothing short of incredible. That is, until you realize that they are managed by the grizzled veteran Neil Warnock. I don't know. Who set a record with Cardiff's promotion by getting the club promoted 8 different times, so the guy clearly knows what he's doing and how to get the most out of his players, which is a must if they're going to survive. However, this is a big step up in quality, and despite my enjoyment of their signing of striker Bobby Reed, who I think will score 10 goals for them this season, I think this big step up will be too big, 20th. And now let's talk about my favorite English club, Newcastle, or you know what? Let's not talk about them or how their manager Rafa Benitez stayed loyal to the club after they went down to the championship. And then he got the club promoted, which was awesome, and he did it in 1 season. And then he helped the club battle to a very respectable 10th place finish last season, only to be rewarded with a very limited transfer budget by the head we call an owner Mike Ashley, who I'm pretty sure promised Rafa otherwise when it came to spending, which means all of us Toon supporters are going to have to sit through another painstakingly awful season of watching our team defend their asses off while trying to capitalize on their chances on the counter or on set pieces. So, I mean, fuck me, you know? I mean, there's only so much for us to get excited about, and Rafa can only work so much magic, so I will not hold it against him if he chooses to walk away at any point during this season or next summer. It's just a bit of a shit show, but I think we'll stay up. 15th. And next up, it's the I still can't believe they actually won the league a few seasons ago, Leicester City, who, honestly, could win no other trophies for the rest of time and still be hailed as one of the best underdog stories in the history of team sports. But that was then, and this is now, and now includes losing one of their best players, Riyad Mahrez, to Manchester City over the summer, and then not really spending on a true replacement for him. However, I do like their signing of 21-year-old playmaker James Maddison, who was considered one of the brightest prospects in the championship last season, and the $20 million they paid for 24-year-old Portuguese international right back Ricardo Pereira, who has got speed and good stamina and a good IQ for the game, and should provide a lot of width for the team as they transition from the defense to the attack. But still, losing Mahrez is a big deal. Plus, World Cup heroes Kasper Schmeichel and Harry Maguire could be gone in this transfer window too, or in January if the club has a slow start to the season. So I don't really know what to predict with these guys. I mean, I think if everything went perfect for them, they'll improve upon their 9th place finish from last season. But the odds of another season going absolutely perfect for Leicester City has to be like 75 gajillion to 1. So I'll say they fight and scratch, and Jamie Vardy will get his goals, and they'll finish in 11th. And up next, it's the last of the 3 promoted teams, but the only one that cruised to the championship title with 99 points because they were so good on both sides of the ball. That's my cruising arm. And as an added bonus, they were very attractive to watch. And that was Wolverhampton. I said it like Wolfsburg. Wolverhampton, who are back in the top flight after 6 years due to the brilliance of their Portuguese manager, Nuno Espirito Santo. And what a name that is. Almost as cool as Conrad, and who with the help of his players and the people in the front office completely changed the culture and philosophy of the club in his 12 short months in charge, which should now set them up to not only survive at the top level, but also to be competitive. And with new signings Rui Patricio in goal, which is a huge signing, I can't believe they got him, and Matinho in midfield, can't believe they got him either. They've added a few legitimate players to take them to the next level, which I think will help them get to 9th this season with aims of getting into Europe the season after that. And now let's talk a little Southampton, also known as the club where Liverpool buys most of their players from, because last season for them sucked. First, highly touted manager Mauricio Pellegrino didn't work out, and that's being kind. Then second, Virgil van Dijk, who was one of their best players, finally got his wish and went to Liverpool. And then finally, they were 5 points behind a very bad Swansea team for that final relegation spot with 5 games to go. But then a hero came along, and led by his astute managing, Mark Hughes helped the club avoid severe embarrassment by finishing in 17th. So this summer, the club did the right thing and signed Hughes to a long-term contract. Then they loaned out underperforming players like Guido Carrillo and Sofiane Boufal. And then they signed 25-year-old center back Yannick Vestergaard from Mönchengladbach to hold it down in the back, hopefully. And 23-year-old winger Mohamed El Yunusi from FC Basel. And honestly, I really like these moves as Hughes puts his stamp on the team. Unfortunately, I don't feel like he's going to move the needle too much, but they will stay up. 14th. And now it's time to up your cherries and discuss Bournemouth, because I love their manager Eddie Howe and his ability to get a lot out of a little, and the fact that he stayed very loyal to the players that helped the club get promoted in 2015, which are also the same ones that helped the club get over 40 points in each of the last 3 seasons in the top flight. But for whatever reason, this season feels different. Maybe it's because most of the other clubs have spent significant money on players, including Fulham and Wolves, who just got promoted. So it feels like there's less room for error, no matter how much spirit and cohesion this team has. And if I want to be super harsh, and I try to shy away from that more often than not, they have a lack of overall talent, okay? Especially in the middle of midfield, which is where we know games are won and lost. And if I want to be harsh again, a lack of depth too, which I believe will be too much then for them to compete. So I'm going to say 19th, but I hope I'm wrong. And yes, guess who is up next? It's the team that everyone thinks that I secretly hate, but I don't actually hate them at all. It's Tottenham, who have done extremely well to finish 3rd, 2nd, and 3rd in the last 3 seasons, and by keeping their core players intact over that time, meaning these guys have grown together. They've had successes and failures together, and they played their home games at Wembley together, which had to have had created real bonds amongst the group. Plus, their goalkeeper is a World Cup winner now, which would do wonders for anyone's confidence, and they have a terrific manager who seems to get better with each passing season. And they're finally moving into their brand new stadium. So, in summation, everything is on the up and up for Spurs, except they made 0 new signings. Nada. Nil. Nothing. And I can't decide if that's a good thing because they trust who they have, or if it's a bad thing because the players have to know that they're not going to truly compete for the league title or make a deep run in the Champions League without adding a big name or two, because they have proven what their ceiling is with this particular group of players. So I want to say they're going to finish 2nd or 3rd at best, but then I remember that we're probably due for Spurs to pull a season-long Spurs and get hit with unfortunate injuries to key players, or see Harry Kane get sold to Real Madrid, or something crazy like they can't win at their new stadium. So even though I seriously do not hate your team, Spurs supporters, you're 100% going to think that when I say that they're going to finish in 6th. Yes, they're going to finish in 6th. But if they prove me wrong, I will wear a Spurs jersey during my reaction video to these predictions. Is that fair? And now, without further ado, it's the last club I'm going to speak about before I name who's going to finish in 1st and who is going to finish in 2nd. And it's Watford, who are still somehow in the Premier League, despite having 4 different managers in their last 3 seasons since being promoted back in 2015. But apparently, that's just how Watford rolls. They love chaos. However, if current manager Javi Gracia or any other manager has anything to say about it for that matter, the less chaos for a team, the better, because chaos leads to uncertainty, and uncertainty leads to a lack of team cohesion, and a lack of team cohesion leads to a lack of trust and rapport amongst the group, and a lack of trust and rapport in all areas of the club, not just the team, leads us back to chaos. And chaos, though comfortable at times, especially if that's all you know, never equates to success. So though I think they have the talent to finish higher, I'm still a little worried about them shaking this chaotic reputation, so I'm going to say 16th. And finally, it's the last 2 clubs, Liverpool and Manchester City, and I'm putting them together because I still haven't decided at this very moment who I think will get 1st and who will get 2nd. On one hand, Liverpool has made some significant signings to bolster their squad. I'm talking Fabinho, Naby Keita, Jordan Shaqiri, and maybe the most important, Alisson in goal, who I think is not only a huge upgrade over Liverpool's other options, he's also going to make the center backs in front of him look good too, which has to be welcoming news for any Dejan Lovren fans or haters or both, because it doesn't look like manager Jurgen Klopp is looking to upgrade in that position. Regardless though, this team, who were 90 minutes away from winning the Champions League last season, just got a lot better. However, on the other hand, Manchester City are coming off a season where they earned 100 points. 100 points. The first time that's ever happened in Premier League history, and they won the league by 19 points. Also, just for laughs, they scored a record 106 goals in their 38 league games too. I mean, what in the absolute These are remarkable feats that need to be respected. So even if they have a small drop-off, they're still going to win the league, so I have to say they're going to finish in 1st, right? But this other hand is itching to say that no team has won back-to-back titles in the Premier League in over a decade.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say that no team has won back-to-back titles in the Premier League for over a decade.
But yeah, says this other hand, they signed Riyad Mahrez to make them even better. Plus, do you really expect their very demanding manager Pep Guardiola to let them have a drop-off in performance? He's been in these positions before with Barcelona and Bayern Munich, so he knows how to motivate teams to replicate their success over long periods of time.
Oh, hey, it's me, the other hand. I can't memorize that, so yeah, what he said.
But don't you want to say Liverpool because Jurgen Klopp is the man and he has a superior record over Pep, and it would just be cooler to pick Liverpool as the champion? Yes, my heart does want to say that. But use your head, big guy. The City players now know what it's going to take. They lived it already, and that experience is going to be the difference. Okay, fine. You win, left hand. So Manchester City is going to be champions again, and Liverpool are going to be a close 2nd. Anyway, that is it. I am done talking because now I want to hear from you. So let me know your thoughts down below, and I look forward to revisiting these picks in May, hopefully without a Spurs jersey on, to see just how many I got right, which will be all of them like always, because you know how I roll. And good luck to your favorite clubs this season. Later.